I threw away all of my New Age influences immediately. I went in my closet, threw away my crystal sage books, affirmation material, and notebooks of things that I had taken notes of over the years. I wanted that stuff out of my house. I just wanted peace, right? What's up, YouTube? It's your girl, Micha'ela Monique, and I'm back with a different type of video. Today I wanted to tell you guys the story of my testimony, literally from being a Christian, being baptized, being in the church, actually even working in the church, to getting lost in the New Age belief, in the New Age philosophy, and then finding my way back to Jesus. Now, this was over the course of maybe 2.5, 3 years, and I really wanted to stress to you guys how important it is to not fall for these practices, and to not fall for these practices and fall for the trap and the lies of the enemy. I actually previously filmed this video back in April of 2020, but I didn't post it for multiple reasons. So this is my second go round filming this video, and I just want to have a heart-to-heart with you guys. Some of y'all might know me from TikTok, from Instagram, but I'm here on YouTube sharing my story and just speaking to you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and start the story off with really my upbringing, right? When did I become a Christian, and how did I even become a child of God, right? And for me to think back to when I was a child, I do remember going to church sometimes. Like, my family would take me, but it wasn't like a regular occurrence, and it was more so just, you know, a routine type of thing. Or maybe like for the holidays, my family would take me to church and I would go through the motions. But as a kid, you know, you really don't understand the depths of Christianity and, you know, living for God and things of that sort. So by the time I was 16, I remember I felt like something really important was missing in my life, and I found myself at a local church. I absolutely fell in love with the whole spirit of Jesus and God, and just being connected and understanding that, you know, we're living for a purpose, you know, to serve God. So I went through that spill. I ended up committing my life to God. I was all in. I had a relationship with God. I prayed. I went to church regularly, and I found myself, you know, getting baptized, I think at the age of 18 or 19. So I had fully publicly surrendered and professed to the world that I was a Christian, and that God is the way, Jesus is the way, and that was that, right? So that was my upbringing. I found my way as a young adult, and life was good. I mean, I'm not gonna say life wasn't hard. Of course, I had some spiritual battles along the way, but one thing about it, I knew who I belonged to, and there was a certain level of peace in my heart, you know, following that path. So much so, whew, I remember my biggest quote that I lived by was that obedience brings blessing. I remember God giving me assignments, and you know, me following them, and next thing you know, like, there's just like a random blessing that happens. And it was really rewarding and refreshing, because it was way different than a life without a relationship with Jesus. So much so, y'all, I worked in the church. At one point I was volunteering actually as a prayer warrior. So at my tenderoni age of 18, 19, I found myself in the church answering phone calls, praying with people, and like really doing the work. And doing the work is not the easiest thing at all. It was hard. Sometimes it was spiritually tiring, but you know, I was just trying to truck along and help as many people as possible, because I knew what life was like to have God in it. So I know that sounds really, you know, good and dandy, but I had a church home on one side of Houston. I ended up moving out on my own, as some of you guys might know my story of moving out and, you know, jumping ship, being responsible as a young adult, and just, you know, spreading my wings. So I had moved to another side of town. I wasn't able to go to my usual church home, so I had to find another church home. I went looking. I went to a few churches, and I found one that I really, really loved. I just loved the atmosphere, the people, like everything was great, but I was new to that side of town. So guess what? I didn't know anybody. I was kind of like, you know, just trying things out, and I didn't know anybody really in the area but the person that I had moved with. So it was kind of like a lack of accountability, and, you know, a sense of unfamiliarity, and a sense of just being like a new person in a new space. It was exciting, but I was new. So, you know, I was open to fellowship and discipleship is what they call it, where you know, you get with other Christians and you keep each other accountable and you pray together, you talk, you kind of walk through this life together, because those people understand what it's like to be a Christian versus not Christian, and how it changes your decision making and it changes the way that you operate in the world, because you're following a different purpose. So I was cool with that. You know, I was going to church and I had found out there was a discipleship group. I'm like, cool. You know, 19, 20 years old at this time, very young, and trying to find other like-minded people that were gonna take this walk with Jesus together. So I had found out the church had a young discipleship group. I wanted to sign up, and there was actually a girl that had reached out and invited me to the discipleship group. Now this is where the story turns. This is where I start to really fall off as a Christian, and it's just really saddening to know that it was a slippery slope. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into that. Essentially, you know, I was going to church. A girl invited me to a discipleship group, and she's like, hey, we're meeting at this girl's house, like you should come, we're gonna be praying. And me, I'm like, this is great, like, okay, people are so nice, this, that, and the third, you know, just being naive. And I was, you know, a few days later, I found myself driving to this girl's house. I did not know her. I didn't know any of the girls. I had literally just met this girl in church, and I was just walking by faith and hoping that, you know, everything was cool. Driving to this girl's house, and, you know, my mom gives me a phone call. I don't know about y'all, but something about a mom. Moms be knowing what's going on. Moms be knowing when to call, when you in trouble, and, you know, like, they have this spirit to know, like, oh, my baby needs me. So my mom happened to call me, and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And, you know, part of me wanted to lie because I didn't want to explain that I had decided to go to some random girl's house that I had just met at church and all that, but I decided to tell the truth. I was like, hey, mom, you know, I'm going to this girl's house, blah, blah, blah. She's like, do you know these people? I'm like, no, you know, but they're probably nice people. I went to church. And she's like, okay, I'll stay on the phone with you until you get there. So I pulled up to the house. When I tell y'all, no cars in sight, no cars in sight. And this was supposed to be a group thing. There's supposed to be multiple people meeting up at this house. So I pull up, nobody's there. I'm kind of waiting outside, you know, and I'm really scared because I'm like, I don't know if this is the right house, and if, you know, this is where everybody's supposed to be at. But, you know, I decided to actually leave. My mom was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, you might want to turn around because the group that's supposed to be meeting you here clearly is not here. So I left with like this really bad, kind of scary inkling feeling that something wasn't right. Time had went on, and I actually have found out that there was some sex trafficking going on in my church and in the discipleship groups. And I honestly feel like I had dodged a bullet. But with that bullet dodge, what should have happened is that I should have told God, you know, thank you for saving me. Thank you for keeping me out of harm's way, despite me being so naive and being open to going to somebody's house that I don't know and subjecting myself to danger, kind of hoping for the best and thinking that the world is just this rainbow of a nice place and that all people have good intentions. So instead, I was actually really upset with God at this time. And I felt like, how could you put me in this position to, you know, have a situation like that? And there was also a few times after that I had been almost sex trafficked just in the Houston area. So this was like the first of a few times, and it's really traumatizing to even think about the fact that you really have to be on your P's and Q's as a young woman and watch who you're around and ask questions and tell people where you're going, because, you know, things are just happening left and right, and you guys know it. So I do want to tell my young ladies and men to really just watch your surroundings and everything. But it turned my heart really cold because I was so confused. I'm like, God, I'm walking this walk with you. I'm going to church. I'm being obedient. I'm doing all the things that you're asking me to do. I'm stepping out on faith and going to a new church. And this is the situation that I'm kind of being put in. I was confused. I was lost, and I was hurt. And honestly, that is where I closed my heart out and I said, I'm not going back to church. Cold turkey, I stopped going. I was kind of watching it online for a little bit, but even then I just found myself getting further and further away from God. I wasn't praying anymore. I wasn't talking to God no more. And I had got to the point so cold-hearted and hurt and angry with God that I said in my mind, I don't need this anymore. I'm gonna find my own way. I'm gonna find my own, you know, spiritual way. Maybe, you know, I'll make it back to God and hope, you know, hopefully this is the way, but I'm gonna try some other things and just see if I can find myself. So I'm gonna talk about how my life started to spiral further and further away from God and further towards New Age. So there were two things happening. You know, it was my spiritual walk going on, and then there was my entrepreneurial journey. Now, I will say, you know, when I was working my 9 to 5 and trying to find a way to start a business, and I was a young 21-year-old, you know, really tapping into passions and other ways to make money and not being trapped in a traditional, you know, type of career, I was spending a lot of time studying, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos. And I found, you know, there was a lot of motivation. There was a lot of understanding that you have to kind of go against what most people are doing, because most people do not go the business route. They don't try to start a business or be a content creator or anything like that. That's kind of a non-traditional way of making money, and it can make you feel alone and isolated. So a lot of times what I have found was that, coupled with motivation and productivity and, you know, business mindset type of coaches, is that they would sprinkle in a lot of New Age teachings in, you know, their motivation. And New Age is really, you know, this whole I movement, like find my higher self, and I am this, I am that, I'm all I need, you know. And it really denounces and removes God from the picture, removes God from the path, it removes God from a say-so in your life, because now you're not living for what God wants you to do and how you want to move. You're living in selfishness, and that's one of the biggest problems with New Age, is that it is this bit of selfishness. It really is like, I'm gonna get to the top no matter what. I don't care who I gotta, you know, destroy. I don't care what relationships I gotta get rid of. I don't care what, but I gotta get to the top because my ego and my pride, and I gotta prove to the world. And so, you know, a lot of the videos I was watching, and I'm not gonna name too many names because I don't want to give these people even more you know, influence to teach these teachings. But you know, the walk of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner and going for your dreams is already lonely. And so when you couple that with New Age, you really, I mean, they go together. You're walking this path alone, not with God, not with somebody else's say so, and not following, you know, what you're supposed to be doing in God's eyes and how he wants us to act in the world and, you know, treat people and, you know, spread light. It's really selfish. I'm gonna be honest, I have had 3 different batteries die during the course of this video, and I'm barely getting through half of it. It's clear something doesn't want me to make this video, but I'm gonna keep trucking along because I knew that there was gonna be some type of distraction and some type of obstacles throughout this. And I understand that because of that, this video will make an impact on at least one person. So I want to get into the parts of New Age that I was practicing that were very dangerous, very detrimental to my spiritual journey, and very detrimental to my relationship with God. I'm not going to go too in depth in all of them because the point is not for me to go so deep and emphasize on these. It's just to touch on them and to let you guys know that it's the things floating right in front of you and the practices that you see on a daily basis that are really destroying your relationship with God and leading you down the wrong rabbit hole. So I'm gonna actually be reading these because I don't want to get off track. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first one is actually vision boards. In 2017, I made my first vision board, and I even posted about it here on YouTube. After the first one came true, the house, the car, and the weight loss, I put them all my faith into it. I remember coming across a video over the years saying that it was unchristian-like, and that it was heavily influenced on material things and putting all your faith into a board, not God, to grant you the things of your heart. But I ignored it. I started to declare to others how much it worked, and that manifestation was so real, right? And that's all you needed was a little bit of manifestation. I truly live by this, and I think over the course of that time, I had made about 3 vision boards over the course of years, and most of the stuff did come true. The second thing is horoscope readings. I was obsessed with the interest beginning in junior high. It grew during the last few years. Based on people's horoscopes, I would prejudge them. I would predetermine how my conversation would go with them, if we would get along, if we would have conflict. I would only talk to certain sign men. I would only talk to certain sign women. I would put all my faith in providing meaningful relationships in sign compatibility, which is so naive and stupid. Every month I watched YouTubers give me a monthly prediction. They were so in depth, and I used it as guidance. Whatever they said was going on, and whatever cards they were reading or crystals they were using to say that my sign at the time was going to go through these obstacles or going to go through these wins for the month, I truly believed it. I remember one talking about how she was manipulating fire, air, and water, and jokingly referred to herself as a witch. Because I knew no better, I ignored this too. I had already gained too much respect for her. The next practice is Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde, without going too deep, is a time of year supposedly when things go haywire. It causes you to be anxious, worried, and it brought up a lot of my past. So I was constantly angry because I was, coming in contact with people in my past, and supposedly Mercury retrograde was supposed to be causing all these things. Next was numerology, repeating numbers, spirit guides. I remember telling my mom about it and how I was seeing repeating numbers, and this is also something that was kind of preached with some of the business related videos and anything dealing with trying to reach your higher self, was that you're going to start seeing these numbers. And what I've done in my research now as a Christian is understanding that it's the wrong type of guides to be following. My mom, I told her about it, and of course she's Christian too. She was kind of wary. She's like, I don't know about that, baby girl. Like, I don't know what that's all about. You need to be careful. But I told her it gave me comfort, so she didn't press the issue. Instead, she would just tell me from time to time that God was trying to get my attention. God's trying to get your attention. God's trying to get your attention. And that he loves me. She knew I rarely acknowledged God during this time. She would randomly read the Bible to me when we FaceTime some mornings. And I am truly grateful for that, for my mom. And even when I wasn't listening and my heart wasn't there, I had a wall up with God and with Jesus. My mom continued to try to be a good influence and to still not ask, but tell me that she was going to read the Bible to me. And I'm grateful now. Next was meditation. This was seen as a means to reach my higher self, since I believed all my destiny was in my own hands. Oh, this is Satan's biggest lie. Biggest freaking lie. Destiny is not in your own hands. You are not a God. You are not the universe. You are not like the key to the world. And that's really what New Age teaches you guys, and you probably see it all the time all over social media. But I tried to meditate and eventually reached over 300 minutes of it. So that's a lot of time and effort put into meditation. I did it before it was widely popular today. I even dedicated my balcony space to this activity. I'm going to play a video showing you guys that I had created a whole space straight to meditation. And it wasn't anything about meditating on God's word. It was really a bunch of New Age stuff and just getting lost in your own thoughts and things of that sort. Next was affirmation. There was a time when I was doing these affirmations on a daily basis and repeating all these phrases, and it gave me obsession over it, and especially with money. And the days that I did it, I made more money in my business. The days I didn't, I had a lot of anxiety and I wouldn't see as much success. But it's like, now that I think about it and I understand what's going on, it wasn't God that was granting me those things. It was me being tied to things outside of God that were granting me what I wanted. And in the end, it eventually leads to a place of emptiness. It eventually leads to a place of high anxiety, fear, and all types of things. So I caution you, if you are doing stuff like that, I'm not going to go into depth of what I was doing and what I was saying, but just know it was not anything of God or Jesus. Next is crystals. I got my first box of crystals, but I never used them. I never took the time to learn. I was too lazy, but I remember learning how they had special powers. and that I was supposed to meditate with them. I remember one time I tried to meditate in my room, and every time I closed my eyes to meditate on my bedroom floor, I felt like someone was watching me in my room, and I was scared in the middle of broad daylight. I'm like, this is supposed to be a thing of peace. This is supposed to be a thing that's supposed to calm my mind. And I would only meditate outside on my patio. And what was on my patio? Crystals, right? The one time I reached my highest self, I had meditated for over 30 minutes straight, looking for answers from my guides and my old self, aka reincarnation, not Christianity. 20 minutes deep, I finally reached my higher self, and it felt like my soul had left my body. It was the scariest thing ever, and I pray that nobody has to experience that, and nobody has to feel like they're looking down on their own body. It was really frightening. Didn't know if I was going to make it back or feel my body and myself as one again. I could not move my body at that time. I couldn't wake. I felt numb, and I thought that this was progress. I thought this was, oh, I'm mastering my skill of meditation. And it was like this never-ending cycle of just trying to get back into that place and to get more answers, when really the answers were talking to God, learning his word, and it was right in front of me if I would have taken the opportunity to learn more. I want to talk about sage. Now, this is something that I kind of got into or was interested in towards the end of my new age journey. I had bought sage one day after it showed up on my TikTok feed. Literally, when I tell you can buy stuff from TikTok, you can. It was called F-Boy Free Sage, and I was going through a lot of anger in my heart about relationships and men and our generation and not finding love the way that I wanted. After I bought the sage, I immediately posted on my stories, and I had multiple ladies in my DMs inquiring about it, asking me where I bought it, what it was, and one who had actually purchased it off of my influence. In those messages, I also had a DM, something random, someone saying, oh, you buying sage now? Oh, so you're a witch. And I was like, I was angry. I felt entitled. I felt like, how dare somebody call me that, as if I wasn't entertaining these types of practices unknowingly. So someone else had noticed the red flags and was telling me, hey, this is dangerous, but I was so far up in my head and my own behind that I wasn't even listening. There are implications and dangers in all of them, and God clearly talks about this in the Bible. He talks about this in his word, and I'm going to read you guys a few scriptures. So 2 Corinthians 11:14 says, and no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades himself as an angel of light. And it's so true, because this whole new age movement is supposed to be this positive vibes, positive movement. Like, the world is just in your fingertips. Like, you own the world. It's just you. And I, me. It's so selfish. So it looks like something very positive, but slowly and surely it turns into something that just draws you away from God. Next, it says 1 John 4:1. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see where they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. Next, God says in Isaiah 47:13-14, all the counsel you have received has only worn you out. Ooh, child. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. They cannot even save themselves from the power of the flame. These are not coals for warmth. This is not a fire to sit by. So God warns you strongly against that. And I think you guys know what fire means in the sense of the Bible. Next is, do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. He sacrificed his own son in the fire, practiced divination, sought omens, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger. So this makes God angry when we seek out other mediums and spirits and try to get answers from objects, spirits, talking to all types of stuff. I don't want to go into depth, but a lot of this stuff is really dangerous. The nations you will dispossess, listen to those who practice sorcery or divination. But as for you, the Lord your God has not permitted you to do so. God is super clear that this is not something that we're supposed to be doing. So And I found those answers. I'm going to tell you guys in a couple of minutes how I found myself finding the truth and turning away from these practices. My coming to Jesus moment, right? February 2021, I was going through a breakup and ended a 4.5-year relationship. I felt alone, heartbroken, depressed. As a content creator who was thriving on TikTok, very present, super confident online, and just showing up and always being there, I had disappeared on social media for weeks. I found myself on my couch in my living room, honestly depressed. And I had reached a point of even suicidal thoughts. Nobody knew this, but I had written my suicide letter on Valentine's Day of 2021. I didn't send it to nobody, I didn't tell anybody, but I had really reached a point where I was so lost and felt like it didn't matter if I was here anymore, which is Satan's biggest lie. And if you are struggling with that, just know that that's not the way. That's not the way out. And that there's consequences to making that sort of decision. So I was on my couch scrolling through YouTube, and I came across a video about how a young woman had threw away her crystals, and she talked about her scary experience and all the new age stuff. A lot of the stuff I'm talking about in this video was in that video. And I began to just go down a bunch of videos that led me back to Jesus. It's crazy. God had to get my attention through YouTube because he knew that that's where I would be and where my attention was. But I watched video after video after video after video. I had so many questions, so much I needed to know, and why this was so wrong and how, and like it was like a revelation. I related to video after video, and I found so many similarities. There were even other preacher kids, you know, kids that really grew up in the church that had found themselves in the exact same boat, which tells you, you know, the power of social media and the power of influence, and how it could really, if you're following the wrong things, like derail you from your relationship with God. I was heavily deceived. Immediately, I felt so heartbroken and guilty, because I knew I had once believed in this stuff so much I influenced my audience. I thought about the time where somebody bought sage because I recommended it or I bought it, and I was like, wow, like I can't believe that I had influenced someone to practice something that God doesn't want us to do. And that is why I'm making this video today, because I want to right my wrongs. I want to be clear whose child I am. I'm God's child. I am living for Jesus to the best of my ability, and I'm taking you guys on this journey. I remember there was a time I had posted and somebody was like, oh, you're a Christian? Like, you don't act like a Christian, and I would have never thought that you believed in God. And to me, with all those followers and all that clout that I had, and my page being so active on social media at that time, I'm like, what am I representing if I'm not representing God? And it really was a big eye-opener for me. So I wanted to undo the damage. I immediately felt like on my heart, like on my chest, I felt it. I repented. I did what I knew was best to do. I sat there, I repented. I got on my knees, I prayed to God. And I told him that I was sorry that I dismissed him. And I thought about what life would have been like if I had left the earth and I had never came back to Jesus. It wouldn't have been good. I threw away all of my new age influences immediately. I went in my closet, threw away my crystal sage books, affirmation material, and notebooks of things that I had taken notes of over the years. I wanted that stuff out of my house. I just wanted peace, right? And after I cried to God and I prayed and I apologized and I told him how much I wanted to be close to him and to know him and how he was the only answer, I felt so much peace in the middle of my heartbreak. It just was like a band-aid. Like it was like I was healing, but it felt different. There was no other feeling I had felt being in God's presence. And I immediately called my mom. She was so overjoyed. But that first night I tried to sleep after I had threw everything away, after I had repented, after I had tried to right my wrongs, and I couldn't sleep. I was so sick to my stomach and scared. I slept with all the lights on, literally all the lights on in my room. I didn't want to dream about the dark side of New Age. So that's my story. Today I am grateful. If this is how God got my attention, I'm happy because I am truly different. And woo, the toxicity and the stuff I used to post on social media, y'all, was like so toxic. I was part of the problem. But today I'm happy. My heart is different. I'm not as angry. I don't feel entitled. I'm more humble. I think of others more. I'm not as aggressive. And I went from what's called a city girl mindset to a wife mindset. And I'll talk to you guys about that in a future video. Since I've been delivered, let's talk about how my life has changed, you guys. It's crazy. My blessings have overflowed. I've had peace during my darkest moments. I haven't had those feelings, those depressing thoughts, and things like that have not overcome me again. Of course, I have moments of doubt, but it's nowhere near as lost and detached and broken as I felt February 2021. I have found my future husband who is very strong in faith and brings me closer to God, not away from. Everything I had previously asked God for, God stripped me away from my old life and has given me back so much more. I thought I was living. I thought I had it good. Everything was on the up and up, but it was very empty feeling in my heart. It's like I had all the materials and all the clout and money and like all these things, but the peace wasn't there. And so now God has given me the peace and has started to rebuild my life in a way that he wants. And I don't want all the material things if I'm cut off from God's love. I have made that clear. I will take the slow route. I don't care. I will take the slow route to success as long as I'm doing things the right way. So this is my conclusion, right? Thank you guys for rocking with me through the video. But I want to leave you with this. God loves you. Whether you were a Christian previously and got away from his presence or you never believed, it's not too late. God gives you a chance daily to make a choice. There's only light and dark, and you must choose which side you'll be on. On the side of light is peace, comfort, love, all things money can't buy. Knowing you're in God's protection and you have a ticket to heaven as long as you walk God's path. Dark is misery, anger, depression, and sometimes suicide. It's confusion and it's hell. There's a constant battle for souls, and the enemy is using all resources to have you. So if you decided you don't want that life, that you're tired of being in a dead end, just talk to God. Repent for your sins, even those you didn't know about. And as you grow more to God and pray, you'll begin to change in the best way possible. So that is my testimony. If you've been following me for a while, you may notice that I'm a lot different. And my spirit is different. My intentions are different. I'm not going about things in a selfish way anymore. So if this helped anybody, I'm so happy. I really just want this to touch people. I want people to be aware of what's going on in the world and to understand things for what they are. We don't always see things in the spiritual realm, and we can't always understand them in the ways that God can, but just know that you have to be careful. You have to stick close to God. And you have to question some of the things that are being influenced by us today. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I pray that you have a blessed day. Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.